Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me again. So today I'm going to show you guys how to make machaca. It's very versatile and super delicious. So to get started, I'm just using 2.5 pounds of beef chuck roast, a half of 1 white onion, 2 green bell peppers, 5 cloves of garlic, 1 can of diced tomatoes with juice, 1 tablespoon of beef bouillon and 1 can of beef broth, 2 limes, 3 bay leaves, and the spices that we're going to be using are cumin, cayenne pepper, paprika, chili powder, oregano, onion powder, and of course garlic pepper. So to get started, you always want to pat your meat dry if you're going to be searing it or frying it in a pan. You guys could skip this step if you want to and just throw everything straight into the crock pot if you're short on time, but I always like to try to sear the meat before I slow cook it. So I'm just adding in some salt and pepper and I'm just pressing that down. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut the meat in half just so that it fits into my pan better. And you guys can see that I've developed a really nice crust on the bottom. This is what you want to see. You do not want to cook the meat all the way through. You don't want to leave it in too long, but you do want to be sure that you put it into a very, very hot pan and that the meat does not have any moisture on the surface, or it will kind of begin to boil and simmer rather than sear like this. And I'm just going to move the grease around a little bit. This is just regular vegetable oil. And I'm going to throw the meat up on the side so that I can get all of the sides seared as well. And then I'm just adding in that second piece. And for the bell peppers, I'm just going to start chopping these up. So I've just cut them in half and removed the seeds. Whenever you guys are cutting peppers, make sure that you're cutting them from the inside out. The outside is very smooth and the knife kind of like slips on the outside of the peppers. So a good way to avoid cutting yourself is to flip the pepper over and cut from the inside out. And then I'm just going to throw those into the crock pot. And you guys can see I got my first piece of meat. I'm just pulling off and I'm throwing that in as well. The peppers, I'm just slicing them into about a 1.5 inch strips. And then I'm just going to go ahead and chop up my garlic. And I'm just doing a rough chop on my garlic because I am okay with it being in bigger pieces. And then the same thing with the onion. So I'm just using half of my large white onion and I'm cutting it into small strips. This last piece I'm just going to kind of chop up because it was kind of an oddball shape. And then the diced tomatoes, I'm going to throw the entire can in with the juice. And you guys can see I'm starting to add in the rest of the meat now. And for the pan that I cook the meat in, I'm going to deglaze it and I'm going to use all of that flavor that got stuck onto the bottom of my pan. So I'm just throwing in my beef broth, and you guys could do this with water as well. And you can see all of that stuff that was on the bottom of the pan is now in my beef broth. So I'm just pouring that in, adding that into my crock pot, as well as juicing my limes. If you guys have never tried the trick with the fork, you should, because it works really good. And then I just have a little bit of water in my beef broth can, and I'm just going to go ahead and build my spices in here. And I'm just doing this so that I can have them in a liquid form rather than powder, just to mix it up a little bit easier for me. So I added in 1 full tablespoon of paprika and 1.5 tablespoons of chili powder. I'm going to put a full tablespoon of cumin. You guys, even if you don't like spices by themselves individually, don't deter away from them, because sometimes, even though you might not like the smell or the taste of cumin, when it's combined with other things, it is a great spice and it does add a lot of flavor. And then I just added about a 1/2 tablespoon of onion powder and a full tablespoon of garlic pepper as well. And then I'm just going to add in about a 1/4 teaspoon of the cayenne pepper. If you guys want this a little bit spicier, just add a little bit more in. And I'm also going to add in a tablespoon of beef bouillon. I'm just going to mix this up and get everything nice and combined. And then I'm going to go ahead and pour this into my crock pot. And then I'm also going to just sprinkle my oregano just right on the top. So 1 full tablespoon of dried oregano as well. Throw in your bay leaves, don't forget those. And then fill this up with water all the way until it is covering the meat, and we're going to cook this for about 4 hours. So after 4 hours, this is how it's going to look. So you can see the meat is super tender, it's falling apart, all the veggies are cooked down. And so I'm just pulling the meat out of the vegetables, and I'm going to remove all of these peppers, onions, and tomatoes out of the juice. I'm going to separate the two just because I want to be able to remove all of the fat that has come out of the meat. And so I'm just straining out my veggies and just putting all the veggies aside for just a minute. And then I am going to throw those back into the crock pot. I'm going to get this meat shredded up, and I just want to show you guys how nice and tender it looks so you can see that the meat has cooked down really, really well. If you guys want to just take this and set it on a cutting board and just kind of chop away at it to get these little pieces, I'm a little bit picky about my fat, so I like to take a lot of that out. But if you guys want to keep that in, by all means, just chop it up. And this step will go by a lot faster because hand shredding it is definitely the most time-consuming part of cooking these slow-cooked meats. And then you can see I have all the meat back into my crock pot, and I'm just adding in more juice. And then I'm just going to combine everything. Just mix it all together. And then I'm going to put the rest of the juice back on the top, and I'm using a ladle because, like I said, I just want to avoid putting in any of that fat. And then you want to go ahead and put the lid back on this, let this cook for another 30 minutes so that all of these flavors can combine again and everything can heat back up. And there is your machaca. I served this with some refried beans, some Spanish rice, and some fresh tortillas. You guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. I hope you guys love this recipe. I hope you have a great day, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't had the chance. And much love to you guys. Thanks for watching.